I grew up on an old farm in Germany, northern Germany, founded 800 years ago by a monastery. And almost 70 years ago, when my parents were young, they decided to convert that farm from conventional agriculture to regenerative, to biodynamic. And every Sunday, my parents would go with us, their kids, on a field walk and explore kind of the state of the fields and kind of the quality of the soil. And what I learned basically from my father throughout all these walks and throughout all these years is something very simple, which is that he always said that the quality of what's growing above the ground, right, and the quality of the harvest, of the outcomes that we create, is a function of the quality of the soil. So the regenerative farmer's attention, right, is always focusing on the quality of the soil, on the quality of the roots. And when I think about that, and today I'm like thousands of miles away from that farm, I'm apparently doing something very different than my parents did in their life. But in essence, when I really think about that, I'm still doing the same thing. It's just that in my case, and perhaps also in your case, what we are dealing with is social fields. And just like the field of agriculture, social fields also have two main components, right? It's social systems, which is kind of the observable part. Kind of that's when people use that term, they usually refer to what's observable and tangible. And it is social soil, the quality of the roots, the quality of our awareness, the quality of our relationships, how we think and converse and act together. And if we apply this distinction to the current moment, what do we see? So we see, of course, on the upper half, all the different sectors and systems. And what is interesting, what we learned at the Processing Institute over the past 20 years is you work with transformation processes in these sectors, and across sectors, you basically see the same type of shifts. In agriculture, it is from industrial to sustainable, doing less bad things, to regenerative, more lately, which is food as medium for healing planet and people. In education, teaching for testing, still the mainstream, the good school, right? Student-centric learning. But what in the face of AI now kind of the most innovative school systems do is really reimagining themselves around education for human flourishing. In health, the foundation, of course, evidence-based medicine, and then we extended the focus on reorganizing healthcare delivery systems around patient journeys. But now, lately, the focus has really shifted towards strengthening the sources of health and well-being. And in other words, what we see is a shift, a transformation from an operating system that runs around what we call 2.0 output and efficiency centric to one that is more user and stakeholder centric, like student centric learning, patient centric healthcare systems, to one that is more regeneration and ecosystem centric, kind of, which is kind of happening here. And what's interesting is that the more we move into this 4.0 realm, as many of you know, we now realize that human health really is a function of soil health, right? And that's kind of what the research has been showing about nutrient density, that food that is growing on healthy soil is actually good for our health, and food that is growing on soil that is not healthy is not. We see similar processes, and we'll also investigate that later in our series. We will have a session on really business and finance essentially moving from extractive to regenerative business models. Technology will kind of have various instances thereof. And then the second last session will be on the evolution of governance and democracy, really from these traditional forms, market hierarchies, to multilateral institutions, and from there to awareness-based action that is organized around shared intention. In all these developments, we see the same fundamental deeper question: how to shift the business model from extraction to regeneration, how to shift the mindsets from ego to eco, and how to shift behavioral patterns from reacting against the past towards sensing and realizing the future. In working with institutions, this is something we often heard. We are trying to solve 4.0 challenges, the stuff in the middle here, with 2.0 methods and tools. And that's what many say is perhaps the biggest waste in society right now, with outdated methods and tools and institutional designs that came out of this 2.0 paradigm. You know, as some colleagues in the UN, the resident coordinators said, we work with 30 country teams there lately, and here's one of their reflections. We are being encouraged to shoot for the moon, to do great things, while some of us are still driving the donkey cart. So there's a disconnect between the challenges that is coming at me and what I really need to do, and the institutional and tool setup, the methods and tools that are available for me to respond to that situation. And the question is, of course, why? Why is that so difficult? And what we would say is, from the social field perspective, we are looking at it the wrong way, because all our attention is absorbed by the upper half. And what we are missing is the social soil dimension of this kind of systems transformation moment, which, just as the farmer in cultivating the social soil, the agricultural soil needs tools, we, the change makers and leaders, also need tools and practices to cultivate the social soil. And that's really the gist of the book, the presencing book that came out this week. And that is also the gist of really the series that we want to introduce to, right? Deepening our quality of listening, our quality of conversation, connecting to what, the future that stays in need of us, and exploring these things by doing. And what we were really saying here is that leadership and change does not start with a strategy. It starts with the process of becoming aware